I am not a Jeep guy. I don't have like a big thing or, well, Jesus Christ. I am not a Jeep guy. I like vehicles no matter what. I'm not Dana Ultimate 60s or Ultimate Dana 60s. You gotta edit that too. Ultimate be great for fucking bloopers, but they're fucked up ones. Okay, the Jeep. So this thing, we've had this for maybe 6 months. It's kind of just been I wouldn't say a snowball, but it's been can you guys do this? Or what if we do it like this? Or what if we do it like that? So, you know, we've strayed from the original path, but only to like go up to a better path. I like vehicles no matter what. I'm not too keen on Jeeps in general and their history and the different generations of them and configurations. I do understand how fun they can be. And Alan, the owner of this thing, approached me a while back, at least a year and a half ago, about building this. And his concept was to run 42-inch tire with Dana Ultimate 60 axles. But instead of just putting that combo on a Jeep, which I'm sure is not like unheard of or uncommon, it was to have this thing be a low center of gravity Jeep. So we wanted to get it to sit as low as possible with 6 inches of up travel from ride height and configure it to that. So like this thing will have like a stance and a profile that's really like aggressive and as low as it can be. 6 inches was the key for him as far as the up travel, and that's what we've gotten. But with just doing that, there's been so many modifications and packaging situations that have to be handled with that. So that's kind of what I want to go over. So you can see the wheel and tire package. It's a 42-inch Goodyear MTR with a Walker Evans 17-inch beadlock, a real beadlock. I'm a big sucker for Robbie Gordon wheels and old Walker Evans wheels. There's something about the designs of those that's timeless to me, or I'm stuck in the early 2000s. I don't know. Either way, great combo. So we have 42s, we have low ride height, 6 inches of up travel, and then we have a 6.2 liter LS built with a LSA ported blower on it, 6 L80 trans, and an Atlas II transfer case with 300M parts. That was all part of this dynamic plan here to package. Now that's pretty easy to do in a Jeep. They're not terribly tight with space, but when you want this thing to sit really low, and this is not ride height, this is just jacked up for us to work under this thing. It goes down at least 4 more inches. So I can't wait to see it setting on its own weight at ride height. It's gonna have a great look to it. On a side note, you know, this thing has been, it's unique, and all of our clients are individuals that want custom and unique stuff and you know, go to Morgan Clarke Design for design and the principles we use for design here. So with putting that powertrain and drivetrain in here, we front half the whole truck. So I'm gonna take the hood off and we'll get back to kind of where we're at with the exterior styling. But I want this off so we can look in there and get more of a view of all the chaos going on. So this is just our mock-up grill. It's going full JL conversion in the front. You can see there's not much fender left, but we did start with the original aluminum factory JL fender. We're using a special hood, which I'll get into when we put it on. And then this is the JL grill. Everything is like this whole front, again, and I know I've said this 5 million times, but it is built specifically for a function where everything cycles, you know, articulation each way, bump each way, lock to lock, and every combo you can configure there. So this trimming and stuff and the profile of where this fender lands is specific to where this tire wants to be when it's maxed out in those positions. What we're gonna do, I mean, it's kind of a bold move, and I'm not terribly upset with it right now. I think for the look of the truck, it's gonna work, but this is just the start of the fenders. I wanna get the hood on and go over that. But the other notable thing here too is these guys are gonna get set inboard. So the owner, the client that owns this thing owns Total Innovations, which makes several custom parts for Jeeps, badass hoods, which I'm gonna cover. But we're gonna get this all like a custom made grill shell. So we can plant this headlight more inboard, or whatever light we decide to run. I think this is for the other side, but either way, this thing's gonna be set inboard. We're still retaining most of our grill. We're just not gonna have the headlights outbound like that. So you can see where the cutout is and where we're gonna play it. Well, that thing just doesn't want me to have a home for it. Similar to that. So I'm gonna get the hood on so we can go over kind of the next step with the design. Before we do that, this whole thing's removable, right? So we usually build stuff without the tube connectors in it and get everything fit, and then add the tube connectors, just like this cross structure here. So this landing point here to the front bumper is gonna have a tube connector, and then also to the frame has a pickup mounting point. So the last part we have to do, and what's key, is building this level at least for 8 to 10 inches, you know, or level with the ground or parallel. And then we're gonna dive into the shock mounts and have another bolt pickup there. So this whole thing, this whole structure comes off, and then this middle one where the radiator will be, this whole thing comes off, and the cross member comes off. So to get that engine is wide open. Lots going on. So obviously the ram assist is just hiding in here because we have the lines hooked up to the box. Trying to make sure we can get a good view. Put some light in here. So right at the A-pillar body mount, this thing's cut off. The whole frame is complete plate. The steering shaft needs a little reroute, so just bear with me on the mock-up phase, or the, you know, incomplete phase of this. There's like some tacks from mock-up on here. Just wanted to kind of show the internal. So this whole frame rail was designed, like, what we had to do is we had to float. We floated the engine and the trans and got the axle. We pulled the wheelbase forward a little bit, just so the thing can clear some of the major areas, like the body mounts and some of the fender stuff. But you can see all the frame is 1/8 inch chromoly plate with internal gussets. And what we'll do is we'll weld all this stuff internally first, and then when our cap plate is on, which is done, the cap plate has slots in it. So the slots will be able to weld, they'll pick up on all of the seams, the internal seams. So you'll be able to capture them from both sides. So this will be fully boxed in. You can see that the steering box is elevated up here. This is where it had to be for clearance. And you can see that's how much higher we have this thing bumping than a normal truck. You know, the steering box kind of tells you, just based on where the drag link and the center link need to be, that's how high things are bumping now. So all the bracing for the panhard bar is built into the frame. And once it gets to that point, then it all goes 3/16. You can see all the machine chromoly bosses to pick up on the mounting location for the box. And you can see all of the work in there. This thing is like, the thing with this truck is we've got it to where it cycles perfectly and clears everything. It looks tight. You'll kind of notice the shock position. I'll get into that in a second, but you know, the steering, lock to lock, bump to bump. We took the steering stops off. That was something that Alan wanted to. He really wanted us to get the most out of the steering as possible. So all the steering stops are off. The suspension, the linkage that's on here was already on here, so we've just adopted it and obviously lengthened it, and then we'll get new track bars. So you can kind of see that stuff, but like the panhard bar. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to the shocks, and I'll go on this side just to make it a little brighter. So with packaging and getting everything the way it needed to be, the most optimal scenario for shock packaging was to put the coilovers inboard. When I say inboard, it's just like it sounds, right? It's the coilovers are cycling inboard of our frame rails now. And it's tight in here, but it works. Everything, it sways back and forth. You know, when you articulate something like this, again, if you articulate this way, it swings, and especially with a panhard bar, it kind of shuffles side to side, and you try to get that to be the cleanest it can and use the longest run of panhard bar you can. But no matter what, you do get some weird cycling. But you can see even on the inside, like the coilover has a pocket right where it'll get plated there, and that's where it swings. This thing cycles 15 or 16 inches of travel using a 14-inch shock. You can see this is an incomplete part of the plate work, but that'll have all its cutouts in it like the rest. And it's the same on this side. So obviously there's not a steering gear here, but there is internal gussets. This one just isn't finished yet because we didn't know where the notching was going to be. But you can see like it's a true front half. This clearancing is all for functionality. So this is where your tire is going in at lock with your steering. Something else that's a little bit different is the bump stops. The bump stops are actually mounted off the axle. They're upside down. There's no mechanical problem to doing that. It's definitely like more unsprung weight, but with a Jeep, you kind of figure that's a good thing to keep the axles planted as best as possible. So we have this integrated coilover mount into a the front link mount, and also the bump stop that's sitting in here. It's just chilling. The cans are nice and not warped. And then we obviously have like a panhard that we grafted into the original upper link mount that was here. So you can see like all the boxing for the panhard bar mount. But it's really a marvel of just cycling this thing over and over. And with the Dana 60s, like it's not an easy axle to cycle in here. So we have like a dedicated cherry picker that lives with the front of this thing, where we can just constantly cycle, check clearances, articulate it, lock it, and just make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to and it's not binding and getting caught up and stuff. So kind of a traditional engine cage, all 1.5 inch, 120 wall chromoly. And then, we have this crossover. So you can see the LSA blower in here. And then just kind of a nice boxed piece. What we wanted to do with this for design is try to keep in mind the balance between plate work and tube work and not have too much of one or the other. And that's kind of what we're achieving here. A lot of the tube run towards the front is primarily for the winch. I mean, obviously this winch is going to pull this thing out of areas where it can't pull itself out. And that's a lot of tension and load on this thing. And so that's why like there's a lot going on under here for the winch, but it's also structurally tied in, not just to the front supports, but then it transfers, all the load into the frame and spreads it all out. We are waiting on a radiator from CBR that has its home here. It's a little offset just to clear the steering gear, but you can kind of see what's going on. This whole front core support is going to be removable via tube connectors, and that's also tied into our fenders. which are not done yet, but you get the picture here. Another feature we wanted to utilize with the factory Jeep is it has a electronically engaged sway bar. So it's over here on the table. We've got this thing. We've got parts being made for this from Sway Away over in the valley to make custom shafts for this thing. But this is the mechanism, and this portion actually has a home right in the middle here. So you can see there's just a tube in here just for welding, but this is where the sway bar pops out. And then it's got its home right here. So that can be engaged and disengaged remotely. So when he's on the highway going to a spot, he can have this thing on for stability, and then right when he gets on the trail, he can turn it off and just use the little guy in the back. Again, you can just kind of see like the tie-in with everything. Rigidity is key in this thing. I want to also check out the cradle for the engine. You can kind of see here under the oil pan. Portion under here, gotta bring my trusty guy here. So there is a network of structure going under here, and it's very asymmetrical. We have this cradle under here, so you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pickup points. You can see the big Atlas 2 transfer case under there. And it's got its mount in the front. But what's going on here is we're running stock fuel cell, so this whole side portion of the chassis is going to have the fuel tank. And then this kick in here, this tube, is to clear the drive shaft when it's cycling. Big pickup here, right by the upper link arm. And these are all, so these bosses are 1 3/4 by 120 wall tube with a big aluminum slug in them. So it's like a solid mount with a bushing. It's just a solid bushing. You can see all this. So this is all tie-in to structure. This tie-in goes to the link, right, to the lower link portion. And then what this is going to do is add protection, so we can put a 1/4 inch aluminum skid on like all these key areas, so he can kind of just grind and you know, just scuff over rocks with this thing and not damage any of the actual mechanical parts. This is a pre-existing portion here that's part of the like the linkage mounts for the front. So we kind of just retrofitted it and got this thing in here, but like, you know, all this is pretty extensive. It's a gnarly structure. And then again, the front like has, this is just a hanging guy. Hold on. Those are the transfer case controls, I believe. Yeah, and shifter. Let's see. So again, built 6L80 trans, Atlas 2, 300M internals. Kind of semi-hard mounted. Like that's a, you'd call that a solid motor mount, but there's still a Delrin bushing in there, so it's going to give you some play, but not a lot. And then again, like this bend here is to favor the drive shaft. I know it's kind of hard to get the proportions of what's going on here. And then this is our underbelly engine protective skid. So this is going to save the trans pan. This is going to save the oil pan, all the bellow housing area from rocks. And then it's connected right up to the front structure, so it all ties it in to the motor mount there. So tube connectors, it's actually double stack tube connector here, so that'll pop out. This whole thing can drop down and be removed, and then you can service everything. But a lot of these tube connectors and stuff in here is to be able to get the engine out and the trans out and everything in one. So like you can actually pull it from the front and get it out of here. The whole front core support behind the grill comes out too. So we're gonna do a couple episodes on this thing, just like everything else. This is kind of just the intro to the Jeep. There's been a lot of feedback as far as seeing this thing in the background and kind of like what is it, and a lot of the Jeep guys want to know. So it is a special build, just like everything else. We give it the same attention to detail and the same craftsmanship and design. So let's go cover the front fender area and like the next plan of attack. The fenders are kind of a big deal just because they set like the tone for this thing from whichever way you look at it. Like you see the fender before you see anything, and all the fab work is like a secondary read, something that you would see after you see like what's going on with the wheel opening in the fender. So we took careful thought into implementing the right shapes. So like this radius, this is a Total Innovations Hero hood. And this radius, like I like these shapes, but this is really what we wanted to kind of translate and just step down. So once this is fully constructed, it like makes sense with the shapes that are already here. Then it's the same with where this kicks and how this kicks. Like everything has a place, and the shape is there for a reason. Obviously you can see like this is a rolled tube with a bin cracked in it here. And then we have a sleeve with another bend, you know, a tube with two bends in it that's sleeved in there that will rosette weld and full pan the sleeve area and blend it, and it'll just look like one seamless thing. I have the tape up here, like I mentioned before, just to show the surface that'll be here. We'll do 1/8 inch aluminum on top of this, which will just be like a bolt-on deal. Just carefully place our hardware where it makes sense, or maybe do like a countersunk hardware so you don't actually see the surface of the bolt. But this will go in, so everywhere where this kind of contacts the hood, the actual top layer of the fender is not gonna go to the hood, it's gonna go under. So what we'll end up doing is this hood will actually like close down on the fender that's in here. And that's just like I think for design, between Alan and I both, that's the optimal thing. So we'll have like another structure in here that panel can tie to, so when you opened it, it would be like a big wide fender, and then it's just going to look like it's built right into the hood, but the hood will actually clasp over it. So this will be similar in the rear, but it obviously be a completely custom shape that favors what's going on out back. We're going to fully build the back too. It's not going to be a full back half where we're just going to chop the frame. We will just notch it accordingly and try to, you know, rear seats is a thing. We want to make sure we have the rear seats. We want to make sure that the compressor and its tank are back there, and we do a sway bar back there as well. It's going to be aftermarket, not just that little flimsy cheese dick thing that they come with. So this is a big design thing. It's a bold move. Some of it, like for me, the front view is the most uncomfortable part of it right now. I like it from every way but dead on, and I think that once we do bumper treatment where there's going to be some plate here and the fair lead is going to go in here, the thing that the winch rope will go through, or the cable, but I think it's going to get nylon, that will all be built up to where it's going to break this up a little bit. But it's, you know, it's a cool project, and it's different and unique, and I am not tied down to just building high-end pre-runners or you know, desert trucks. I just like anything custom and anything unique, and if the client has a vision or a concept and we can implement our design into it and create it, then that's my wheelhouse. It doesn't matter if it's a road car or a motorcycle or anything, as long as it's just got the right creative juices flowing and the right functionality, then it's dialed. So this is gonna be our first episode for the Jeep. I don't know what we call it. It's not like, I would almost call it an MCD1 Jeep, but I feel like that should be a ground up build, not something that we're kind of just doing the front and rear to. So we will leave it absent of a name right now. Want to cover more details on here, same thing I always say, if you guys see something you like, see something you don't like, see something you want me to go over, anything, let us know, comment, and we will cover it. So thank you guys.